I'm curious about like how your experience in the open source and the tooling space, especially like, working on things like post CSS, how has that influenced how you approach working on a product like Web Studio, and what are the kinds of things that you've been able to bring to the product?
The most important thing is such product as data, which represents the state of the application of website. It's basically an AST, abstracted syntax tree of everything. Our compiler directly translates it into code. You get React application. In Builder, it translates into runtime code, which reactively changes when user changes something in the project. One thing I figured while working on this project is we don't need complex parsers or code generation tools. We just can iterate over abstract syntax tree and generate code with strings. Like we don't need complex libraries like Babel. We can use this to generate any code for any framework. It can be React, it can be Svelte. Eventually, we will make more communication between developers and designers by designers to use code from developers and developers to use some components designed in Web Studio.
That reminds me actually the reason why these tools exist in general. It's actually like if you think about it, the core of this matter, what we are trying to solve with all of these tools is the designer-developer collaboration. Because it's never been solved. It's still not solved today. And the core reason is simply that the gap between the ways of working for designers and ways for working for developers is just so different. And we have been trying to solve this with so many different, approaches, starting with, at least some part of the design should be like tokens encoded in some JSON and then synchronized into the design system and called. It doesn't work, or it works but creates so much more work that you ask yourself if it was even worth it in the end. Because we tried, we actually the first version of the builder was built using this approach. We were trying to synchronize the tokens in Figma and design. Like the entire interface was built at Figma. Everything was tokenized, and then the tokens were synchronized in the builder. We still use this because we haven't migrated away from there is just no solution to this. And in the end, this is a madness. Like building complex UI in this approach is just mad expensive. It's just too much work because you start encoding every little thing, every little color, every little space into the token system, and then you have to maintain it in places, in both in Figma and where it's used. And then there is still so much stuff that comes on top of it that, you can change those things, but they might break something else. And it's just not worth it. Like the attempt of trying to solve the designer-developer collaboration by having some kind of like protocol between the tools. It's just this protocol is just a subset of everything that needs to be done. And this is probably like 1% of everything that needs to be done. So I think ultimately the only solution to this, if we ever as humanity are going to solve the designer developer collaboration, is to have a single tool or single place where both of them can operate. And that's what everyone, and I literally mean every, tool that is meant for complex things like Webflow and even Framer and Web Studio. This is all we are trying to solve, actually.
Yeah, I think designing and developing in the same place has a lot of merit to it. One feature that I saw from you guys that seems like nice for that is the way you guys do semantic elements. I used Web Studio, or I used Webflow with my wife one time, and I was just so surprised at how much I had to know as a non-developer to like make a website and make it look good and make it right. Can you or Bogdan go into like a little bit about how the element works in Web Studio and how that helps people make semantic websites?
Bogdan, take this one because the mastermind behind it. We started initially with components and with the React thinking, like sort of there is a component for every single thing, and then it's a high level abstraction, and then something is happening under the hood. But then we realized with AI, it's going to be difficult because like generally AI doesn't know your components, it knows HTML. And you want to be able to generate something with AI, bring it into Web Studio. And this is where Bogdan came up with the element.
We recently added a new element component, which basically gives you an ability to create HTML elements. Main idea was to give very low level control for visual designers to let them specify any heading levels, any paragraphs, not abstract too much. So generated code can be the same as intended originally. The same goes with the AI, which can manipulate any existing HTML elements, but it cannot know our abstractions. But idea to just rely on something that exists in the wild. One important thing here in HTML element is content model, which I basically parsed from HTML specification. There is an indexes table, which shows which element can be in which parent. I just scraped it, built a list of rules for Web Studio, and now it can warn you when you put something incorrect. There is a tag property which shows only tags which you can use within context. For example, list item can be put only inside of lists, unordered list, numeric list, or menu tag. And backward, when you try to change tag on parent, it will not let you use, for example, paragraph because it knows what children it has. So it let us enforce semantic HTML for users. It shows only specific attributes for this element, and in the future we will introduce accessibility tree awareness, so it will be additional layer to validate what the user builds.
I think that the fundamental thinking here is that if we are using components that we made on top of the web platform, we are working sort of against the web platform. Yes, we can make nice components. Yes, they can do a lot of stuff. But fundamentally, every month, every year, web platform comes up with new things. Now, there is a huge amount of work being done in CSS, in HTML, the popular API, the, what is it called, Bogdan? What is it called? The triggers
Invokers.
We can have.
Invoker commands.
Invokers. Yeah, exactly. And all those things are kind of like HTML and CSS is slowly catching up to the requirements of the real world, of the things that we used to do with custom code. And all those custom abstractions that we like to be building as developers are actually going to be like in a year, a bunch of legacy code that you don't want to have. So our idea is actually to rethink how we are moving forward and get back to what HTML and CSS is trying to accomplish and get out of the way. So with this element, it's kind of like a context-aware element abstraction that allows you to use any element in the right place with the right attributes and tells you when you are wrong. And it's kind of like weird because as a developer, if you write HTML, I almost guarantee you that none of us can write fully compliant, valid HTML without looking it up. Like I'm looking up constantly things that I can or cannot use. Like today, I had to look up if I can use a header element inside of a dialog element. It seems logical that you could use header, but no, you can't. It's not for this. And stuff like this happens all the time. And weirdly, in this visual kind of constrained environment, you're actually easier. You can easier see what can be used and what can't, because it just tells you right away.
One thing that I wanted to dig into really quickly, which is a bit of a divergent from this topic. So both in the call out post of like why Webflow, why now, and just sort of on your documentation site, you call out Cloudflare as a very specific enabler to like what you're building. And you put a lot of emphasis on it when a lot of other times, people might be building on Cloudflare, but don't mention it as much. So why is it important to you to call it out? Like, what is it that Cloudflare is giving you that you think is sort of a differentiator?
I think the biggest feature or like infrastructure that got me thinking that Cloudflare is the god is workers. They did two very important things. They made them super cheap, and distributed across the globe and isolated, like little tiny machines that live in 270 locations across the globe, and nobody else has this quite like that. And if you think about it, what do you want from a website? You want it to be really fast anywhere in the world, and you want it to be able to load dynamic data and still be fast. And that's what you can do with workers plus the caching. Because essentially bringing down infrastructure cost to near zero and making it really, really fast, isn't this what everyone wants for a website? We could have done this with classical CDN, but then it would be only static website. You can't build a seriously big website without having ability to call APIs, having ability to cache. Cloudflare is just making it work really well with the storage, with the storage which is S3 compatible but doesn't have the egress cost, with the CDN that is like one of the best in the world, with workers, with Kiwi caching. It feels like they are the only ones who really built the platform for this. And sure, there is like a zillion's way of doing this, but Cloudflare is really doing some things right.